The U.S. economy slowed in the first quarter by 1.5%, but the drop in U.S. gross domestic product, or GDP, likely does not signal the start of a recession. Many experts are blaming a wider trade gap for the numbers. The drop follows a robust 6.9% expansion in the final 3 months of last year. Jobless claims dropped last week, and the total number of Americans collecting unemployment benefits remains near a 50-year low. Macy's shares are surging this morning as the company raises its profit outlook for the year. It beat estimates for sales and revenue for its last quarter. Justin Timberlake selling his song catalog to Hypnosis for a reported $100 million. The music royalty fund already controls songs by Ed Sheeran, Nirvana, Journey, and more. Timberlake gets a lump sum. Hypnosis can charge for the use of that music forever. Jessica Ettinger, CNN.
On the battlefield, there's a saying America's military men and women live by. Never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Off the battlefield, Wounded Warrior Project operates with the same goal. Wounded Warrior Project was created to help our men and women returning home with the scars of war, whether those scars are physical or mental. Wounded Warrior Project. We never leave a fallen warrior behind, ever. Learn more about what we do at woundedwarriorproject.org.
Finding great candidates to hire can be like, well, trying to find a needle in a haystack, but not with ZipRecruiter. Its powerful technology actively finds and invites qualified candidates to apply to your job. So while other companies might deliver a lot of hay, ZipRecruiter finds you the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/free.
KCAA. One of the best ways to build a healthier local economy is by shopping locally. Teamster Advantage is a shop local program started by Teamster Local 1932 that has brought together hundreds of locally owned businesses to provide discounts for residents who make shopping locally their priority. Everything from restaurants like Corky's to fun times at SB Raceway and much, much more. If you're not currently a Teamster and you want access to these local business discounts, contact Jennifer at 909-889-8377, extension 224. Give her a call. That number again is 909-889-8377, extension 224.
Are you underpaid and overworked? Is a living wage and employee benefits like affordable health care more of a dream than a reality for you and your family? If so, it's time to form a union. Don't be denied the wages and benefits you deserve. Come together in a union with the power of numbers. A union is not a privilege, it's your right, and it will make a difference. Contact Teamsters Local 1932, a powerful and successful labor union in San Bernardino, by visiting Teamsters1932.org/organize to start today. Labor unions built the middle class, and the middle class built America. That's the message from Teamsters Local 1932, a strong and successful labor union based in San Bernardino that represents over 14,000 hardworking people across the Inland Empire. The Teamsters are ready to help you organize for better pay, increased benefits, and improved working conditions. Reach out to Teamsters 1932 at teamsters1932.org/organize to speak with an organizer today.
Are you graduating high school soon and wondering what to do next? College is one option, but why not consider the high-paying jobs made possible by union power? Labor Union Teamsters Local 1932 has opened a training center to get you into the high school to high-paying job pipeline. You'll learn all the skills needed to excel in opportunities across industries. Visit 1932trainingcenter.org to enroll today. That's 1932trainingcenter.org.
The other stations claim to be local.
Yeah, right.
KCAA Radio, the only true local radio station on your radio dial.
military? Are you tired of CEOs telling you what to think, who to hate, and who to vote for? Well, welcome to the Rick Smith Show. We don't take orders from some boardroom, and we don't do focus groups or talking points. We don't work for them, and we never will. I'm Rick Smith, and I work for you. Join us daily at thericksmithshow.com and download the podcast and never miss a minute.
It's time for the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is the voice of the working class, Rick Smith.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is the Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here. Today on the big program, lots to get to, lots to talk about. Going to start off with the Ukrainian president. Zelensky sent condolences to the U.S., saying that he was deeply saddened by the tragedy in Texas. In fact, tweeted out, deeply saddened by the news of the murders of innocent children in Texas. Sincere condolences to the families of the victims, the people of the U.S. and POTUS over this tragedy. The people of Ukraine share the pain of the relative and friends of the victims and all Americans. And they're basically being bombed into the Stone Age by a maniacal dictator, and got time to send thoughts and prayers and condolences. Now that I'll take that from him, because he has no power, no control, no ability to make change here. I'll take it from nobody else. President Obama said that our country is paralyzed, not by fear, but by a gun lobby and a political party that have shown no willingness to act in any meaningful way that might help prevent these tragedies. Yeah, truth. But the NRA did. The NRA did send their deepest sympathies to the families, and not just their sympathies, but their deepest sympathies. And thank goodness for that, right? And what happened in Texas was the 27th school shooting this year, the 119th since 2018, and the highest number since last year, 34. So we're getting there. Well, we still got a whole half a year to go yet. I predict the way things have been going, we should, to use a gun nut term, we should blow that out of the water. And the thing that bothers me is each one of these 27 this year, the 34 last year, the 119 since 2008, has followed a pretty simple, normal, predictable path. You have this horrible shooting, you have this horrible event, you have this outcry, there's a media frenzy feeding, it's everything about the shooter, everything about every minute of every day, the tears, just all kinds of just constant media stuff. And then the thoughts and prayers. Lots of people, oh yeah, how tragic. Oh, then we're going to hear the stories of, these wonderful children. We're going to get all this. We're going to be inundated with all of this stuff. And then social media is going to, ramp up, and you're going to have the gun debates, and we're having this. We'll be having the one side, we should ban all guns. The other side, no, we need more guns. And you're going to have all this, and you're going to have the noise, and it's going to be loud, it's going to be crazy. And nobody politically is going to do anything. And we're going to go through some of this because they're not. And then it quiets down until the next time. And then again, same thing. You have this horrible tragedy. And it's the same thing. The media frenzy, you have this, just constant, and then thoughts and prayers, and social media debate over the guns and no guns and all this stuff. And then no one actually does anything. And then it calms back down. And then it happens again. And it's just constant, it's this cycle. And it's gotten to be it's gotten to the point, quite frankly, that the windows have gotten smaller. that we go through these stages a lot quicker now because, well, that happened. That was yesterday. What's going on today? And we don't hold on to anything. And you look at Twitter, you look at social media. It's the same. You could just change the dates, and it would be the same debate. It would be the same discussion. In fact, I deliberately tweeted out a cartoon. And I always think of cartoons as something funny. This isn't funny. It's an image of the Republican Party and the NRA, carrying their assault weapon, holding hands, walking away from a field of bloody bodies. With the caption "Blood Brothers," saying we've accomplished so much together. And the reason I put that out is not for the shock value of the image, because we're not shocked by any of this stuff. I put it for the date. The date was 11/8/2018. And you could use that image over and over and over and over again. Because back in 2018, that was shocking. Now it's like, yeah, it's Wednesday. And when the next one comes, I'll have it ready for the next one. And this is how this has gone. And this is why this moment is so frustrating. Because as Chris Murphy pointed out yesterday, this doesn't happen around the world. This doesn't happen in the rest of the world. Because, well, they do things. Their governments actually do something. And I look at Joe Manchin's statement. Joe Manchin. He says it makes no sense at all why we can't do common sense things and try to prevent some of this from happening. It's all just unbelievable how we've gotten as a society that someone could be that deranged and this sick. No, they're not deranged and sick. I'm not going to give you that out. They had a weapon of destruction that you have gone, okay, go ahead. So he's asked, what are you going to do? And he goes, well, I'm going to do anything I can. I'm going to do anything I can to pass common sense legislation to address the gun violence. We're going to do anything we can do, anything we can do to address this issue. So someone said, hey, well, in order to pass it, you're going to need to address filibuster reform. Whoa. Can't do that. No. Whoa. When I said anything, I didn't mean anything. What I really meant is I'm not going to do anything. I'll do nothing in my quest to do anything. And this is my problem. And this is where the frustration is, because we don't hold these people accountable. Oh, the headline is Joe Manchin will do anything. And then you read the body of the article, he's really going to do nothing. And you find out that these people they're well secured. Because the Sergeant of Arms of the House wants to ban all guns in the Capitol. They're going to be in a gun-free zone. They're going to be safe. We find out that Greg Abbott, the governor of Texas, after the shooting, instead of going to work on figuring out how to make sure this doesn't happen again, went to a fundraiser over 300 miles away. Yeah. And today, the news of Beto O'Rourke going to, and good on Beto O'Rourke. I'm not a huge fan. I've never really been a huge fan, but good on him for saying, you know what? Enough already. He said, you're doing nothing. You're offering us nothing. You said this is not predictable. This is totally predictable. And it is. These things are totally predictable. And it's about time that people stand up and say something. It's about time that people stop playing by the Marquess of Queensberry rule. Stop saying, Mother, may I. I'm actually proud of Beto O'Rourke for, stepping forward in this moment and saying, enough already. And you got these people, now is not the time. No, now is the perfect time to be talking about this. Now is the perfect time to be pointing fingers at these elected leaders who have done nothing. I look at Representative Ronnie Jackson, Trump's boy, who, Second Amendment guy, who's now blaming, this is, where did you pull this out of? Did you fall back into 1980? Evidently, this is video games and rap music. That's why this is. It's not the guns, evidently. No, need more guns. And my email box was full of, no, this is the broken family. And you go, hey, dimwits, do you believe that there are broken families in other countries? Do you believe they've got rap music and video games in other countries? Yes, they do. You know what they don't have? They don't have 118 mass shootings since school shootings since 2018. 119. I'm sorry. They don't have 119 school shootings in that time period. No, they don't have that. We're unique in that. And why is it? It's not the rap music. It's not the video games. It's not the broken families. Everybody has that. Gee, it could be the gun. Could be the gun. I think, don't quote me on no, absolutely quote me on it. It's the gun. And I've been sitting here thinking about Republican logic, because it's always, we got to blame something else. We got to distract in certain ways. And I'm sitting here in my mind going, it's crazy that nothing can get done. Do you remember right after the memo was leaked about Roe? That, oh my gosh, the Supreme Court leak, that was all about the leak. We're going to get that leaker. When you know who the leaker probably was. It was a justice's wife, a certain Supreme Court justice's wife who has a history of doing something like this, who wants Roe to end. And people went to the justice's house and protest. Very peaceful. In fact, they went to Amy Coney Barrett's house and dressed up in Handmaid's Tales costumes and had candlelight vigils. They went to Susan Collins' house and they drew with chalk on the ground. Oh my gosh, they defaced the sidewalk with chalk. Oh my goodness. Immediately the Republicans and our whole establishment, they came together, and in days they acted to solve what was a crisis, because the Supreme Court and their Senate brothers and sisters, that's who's important to them. They don't care about us. They don't care about our kids. Oh, thoughts and prayers. Yeah, about that. They don't care about, when they care about something, look how efficiently they can move. They passed a piece of legislation in a day to protect the Supreme Court, to protect Susan Collins. In fact, in Maine, not only did she not have to wait for it to rain to get the chalk off of her sidewalk, they called out the Department of Public Works to come and wash her sidewalk. That's how important that was to them. That's how efficiently things work. But our children? No, we can't possibly pass any sane laws. We can't do anything. Then there's the other part of this. I listened to the Ted Cruz's. I listened to the gun nuts going, we need to arm our teachers. We need to get guns into the hands of teachers. And I was sitting here thinking about this. I'm going, hold on. Wasn't it just the day before that you were calling teachers sexual predators and groomers and how they couldn't be trusted with our kids? And now you want to give predators guns? Now you want to give these horrible leftist, horrible people guns? I mean, do you see how insane this rhetoric is? I mean, there's no logic whatsoever to what they're saying. But, we need those teachers with guns to keep our kids safe. But we can't depend on them to help them learn to read and write. We can't ensure that they help our children learn to critically think. No. We need some crazy mythical pastor. Deep breath. This is where we're having such problems. Ted Cruz came out today, said, we need to, this, I love this. Again, this is another one of those, help me through this, Ted. I got to think this Republican logic through. We need schools that have just one exit and entrance. Just one. Just highly fortified, heavily guarded, heavily armed. Just one. That's how we're going to keep our kids. In fact, we'll take those hardened cockpit doors that we didn't use for the airplanes for years, going to put them on the schools. And my first thought was, okay, where's the legislation? Oh, you weren't really serious, were you? No, you just wanted to speak. I got it. Because where's the funding bill that you're going to vote against? Because what you're talking about is millions and millions of dollars in retrofitting schools. But again, you weren't really serious. You're just, flapping the gums. Because you don't have any solutions. But you're throwing everything out there, the spaghetti theory. Because you're so desperate to get away from what is right in front of everyone. It's the easy access to these murder machines. That's what it is. And if Ted Cruz isn't bad enough, and I find Ted Cruz despicable, I look at this Gozer character, Arizona Republican Paul Gozer, who evidently he thought it was a good idea to spread false, evidently the right wing, in doing what they do because they saw a good tragedy, 19 dead kids and a couple of teachers, 3 teachers. This is an excellent opportunity to go beat up on the trans community. Evidently, they found these images of this person who I guess lives in Georgia, and they said that evidently this is the person. And the tweet that he went out and he spread, this is the trans people. This is that's the shooter's transgender, and what? Again, never let a good crisis go to waste when you have an agenda. And your agenda is to divide, not to solve our problems. Again, these people have no answers. All they want is tragedy and division. And this is where elections have consequences. Right now, we should be in the streets screaming. Don't take to social media. Don't care what your thoughts are on social media at this moment, because it's the same as it's been the last time and the time before. It'll go away tomorrow and we'll forget about it the day after until the next tragedy. It's time to really start getting in the streets and really holding these people accountable. That's just my thought. I'd love to hear yours. You can email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. I'm going to take a quick break right back after this. 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. If you got a quick thought, want to hear it. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. Generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
I'm still stuck in this moment. You look at the fact that when our government wants to move, when our Republicans want something done, man, they can move quickly when it's important to them, when it's important to corporate interest, when they're covering their own behind, man, they can move lickety-split. When it comes to us, when it comes to protecting workers, when it comes to protecting consumers, when it comes to protecting minority groups, when it comes to protecting our children, nowhere to be found. And a perfect example of this, right after that Supreme Court, leak, immediately Florida sprung into action. And their legislature passed a law, no protesting at people's homes. No, you can't go to politicians' homes. You can't go to justices' homes. You can't go to, no protesting at homes. Because look, we don't want you going to the CEO of the people who make the AR-15s and putting a microphone in the CEO and going, hey, how does it feel to live in this huge mansion where you make all this blood money? Yeah, we don't hear much of that, do we? And maybe we should be. But hey, in Florida, there's a law. It's against the law to go protest in front of, and maybe this is where all the CEOs are now going to live because, well, your freedom of speech has been just diminished because it's important that it's diminished. It's important that it's squelched. It's important that you're silenced because you don't matter. And again, this circle, you have these horrible tragedies. The media goes crazy because everyone's paying attention. Everyone wants the details, the bloody, gory, horrible details, and then thoughts and prayers, lots of those. We care about the children. Then we go through the debates, we go through the outrage, we go through all that, and nothing gets done. Nothing gets done, and then it goes away. We throw up our hands, go no. Next time, we're going to do something next time. And we don't even cross our fingers anymore. And this is the problem I have with all of this. This is my problem with Republican and some Democrats. Look, Kirsten Sinema, she's saying, about, the DC solutions on guns are not realistic. Well, what are those? We haven't even debated those. The reality is the vast majority of people want background checks. Why can't we get background checks? Why can't we get that done? Oh, that's right, because people like you, Kirsten, people like Joe Manchin, going, well, we're not going to do anything on the filibuster, sorry. Because you got people like Tony Gonzalez proud of the fact that he voted against any sane gun regulation. And then on the day of a tragedy in his district, thoughts and prayers. A weird, creepy Bible verse of the children going to God. Am I the only one who sees this as wrong? Am I the only one who sees this as angering? And look, I have people who go to me, well, it's just not the children. Yeah, this is what gets us outraged. There are killings every day. And again, it comes back to there's a common denominator here. It's the fact that we've got more guns than we've got people. Why don't we have a system that says you got to insure your car, you got to insure your dog, but you don't have to insure your gun? You don't even have to register your gun. I know, but it's my right to have one. In fact, in 32 states, you don't even have to know how to use a gun to own one. You don't even have to fire it to own it and carry it around. You don't think that's kind of wrong? And it's all because, well, our leaders are totally ineffective. Because the money machine, the gun lobby, they got us by the short hairs. Right where they want us. They're making money, and our children, they're being sacrificed. They're being sacrificed at the altar of profit. Sad stuff. Quick break, right back. I'm Rick Smith. and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1934. That was the day trucking bosses and leading Teamsters in Minneapolis reached a tentative agreement after a tumultuous week of fighting in the city market. Strikers won many of their demands, including union recognition and the reinstatement of all strikers. Such a thorough victory at the Battle of Deputies Run earlier in the week had shaken the city's elites to their core. As the dust settled on the picket lines, Governor Floyd Olson had called a 24-hour truce in an effort to organize negotiations. The debacle of Ohio National Guardsmen attacking Toledo strikers had reached Minneapolis. Fears of a growing red menace fueled demands for a settlement, prompting Olson to order National Guardsmen into the city's armories armed to the teeth. Historian Brian Palmer, author of Revolutionary Teamsters, The Minneapolis Truckers' Strikes of 1934, observed that the May 25th deal settled the strike quickly enough, but final victory would be postponed. Strike leaders had to choose which concessions to make under immense pressure from state politicians, intractable employers, and federal mediators. They also worked to avoid a potentially deadly confrontation with the National Guard. Above all, they demanded union recognition, agreed to arbitration of future disputes, and withdrew the demand for a closed shop. There was no contract, and the inclusion of inside workers proved contentious. Palmer adds the gains were limited but real enough, as strike leaders spelled out what had begun as a violent assault on strikers ended with workers fighting in their own interests, learning that they had only their union to rely on. The open shop offensive was defeated, and union recognition was won. In the weeks ahead, it would become clear the fight was far from over. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
I never dreamed of growing up to be a political activist commentator, but here I am, and it worked out pretty well for me. I've been lucky enough to have a voice in public matters and eke out a modest living running my mouth as an independent populist agitator. Still, I have to confess to the sin of job envy. Not in the sense of being resentful, but regretful about my own inability to lift the trade of journalistic commentary to the heights attained by a small, feisty collection of unique public opinionators, political cartoonists. In framing issues and rallying people to think and act, these journalists have an unfair advantage over us mere word crafters. They can literally draw a picture to make their point. They reach masses viscerally as well as cerebrally, and visceral usually outpunches cerebral. Editorial cartooning is a profession made up largely of progressive mavericks who enter the social, political, cultural fray with an abundance of anti-establishment audacity, an eye for irony, fondness for the underdog, and an ability to laugh at absurdity, plus artistic talent. Because cartooning is an expression of the human spirit that's been irrepressible since cave drawings, generation after generation of pen and ink champions of democracy blossomed. The general public's appreciation and demand for the cartoonist's unblinking honesty and satire have never flagged, even increasing whenever the artists come under public assault by autocrats, plutocrats, screwballs, and assorted other censors. These graphic editorial artists matter. Again and again, they've roused the public to rise up and put down corporate and political scoundrels, incrementally advancing our nation's democratic possibilities. As in the natural world, though, even the most beneficial creatures can be driven to extinction. This is Jim Hightower saying, check your own local newspaper. Are your favorite cartoonists still there?
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So it looks like a recount is going to happen here in Pennsylvania in the Senate race on the Republican side, as Dr. Oz, as I've been calling him, Dr. Quack, holds a very slim lead in the Senate race over David McCormick. I guess just 902 votes. That will happen. The Department of State announced that there will be a official recount. I do find it interesting that the Trumpkins are saying, no, we can't possibly let that happen. This is bad. And yet McCormick saying, no, we want to count every vote. It's been kind of entertaining on a certain level to watch the. It's been entertaining, to say the least, to watch this whole thing play out in a way that's, well, very predictable. At least that's my thought on it. But this election cycle in Pennsylvania is going to be very interesting, and here to share some thoughts on that, I've asked our good friend Will Bunch to come talk with us. Will is a national columnist for the Philly Daily Inquirer. You can check out his work there. Will, thanks for taking time for us. Okay, looks like we don't have Will. So this is one of those live radio moments where evidently Will's not his microphone is not working. But he's got a really great piece out, and this is I've been talking about Doug Mastriano for a while, and the fact that not thrilled with him as the gubernatorial candidate for the Republicans. He won overwhelmingly in the election there. I do find it kind of scary to have someone as much of an extremist as we have there. But I think we got Will here on the line. Will, how are you?
I'm good, Rick.
So walk me through. Have you been following the Senate race here in Pennsylvania?
It's funny you ask this, because I actually tweeted about this the other day. I mean, of course, I've been following it, obviously, and I want to stay informed. And as you mentioned, listeners probably know, so they're starting this recount. Mehmet Oz is up by 900 votes. If you had to bet your life savings, you'd probably want to bet it on Oz at this stage. Unless there's a court decision that gives McCormick access to some of these mail-in ballots that are being contested, I guess. But the thing I tweeted about this the other day is, I'm thinking about the big picture, right? And the big picture is who's going to be elected to the Senate in November, and it's going to be either the Democrat John Fetterman, or it's going to be one of these two people, either Oz or McCormick. And to me, there's just not a dime's worth of difference between Oz and McCormick, in terms of, they're both not really Pennsylvanians. They're both out of state. They're both multimillionaires. They both are people who, while you probably wouldn't have totally agreed with their politics 5 years ago, at least they were like kind of sane, rational human beings back in the last 5 or 10 years, and then they totally lost their mind to suck up to Donald Trump to try and get his endorsement, which Oz got and McCormick didn't get. So I'm just really not caring that much whether Oz and the reason that if you want a more progressive Senate and you want a more progressive state and you want the Democrats to be able to hopefully, fingers crossed, maybe get something done in 2023, you want the opponent that Fetterman has the best chance of beating, right? And I'm not sure who that is. Probably McCormick, just because McCormick's kind of a drip, but and Oz is very telegenic and very good on TV. But Oz, on the other hand, has alienated some people in the Republican base because they know about his past life when he was basically a middle of the road guy, and who was pro-choice on abortion probably, and didn't think that transgender kids were going to burn in hell and all of that stuff. So
yeah, but that never really seemed to matter for Trump, though. Since he's got the Trump endorsement, he's with us now. So he's evolved. He's crazy now. So he's okay. I see the Republicans coalescing around. He's crazy now. Well, we can forgive that past stuff, much like they did with Trump.
Yeah. Well, no, I think Oz is potentially the more dangerous foe for Fetterman because, like I said, he's very good. I saw him on the campaign trail a couple of weeks ago up in Bucks County. I went to an event, and he's very, he's good in person. He's glib. He's good on TV. That's what he does for a living, right? And right, he has that Trump endorsement to.
He's got better ratings.
yeah, he has that Trump endorsement to protect his support from the GOP base, and he probably will have some crossover appeal just from TV fans who aren't that super political, right? So he's a little bit more of a dangerous candidate.
Yeah.
But
do you find it ironic, like I do, that this is going to come down to mail-in ballots, and that this could come down to ones that don't have dates on them? Because last week you had I think it was the third district court of appeals that ruled that a judicial race back in 2021, that the ballots that were arrived on time but didn't have a date on them could be counted. I think this is why McCormick has filed this suit, to make sure that those ballots get counted, because hey, wherever you can get them. I think it's interesting that we're fighting over the dates and the ballots, and we're right back where we were in 2020.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that people are focusing on, and I totally agree, and I understand why they're focusing on this, is just the hypocrisy here. Although I guess the Pennsylvania State Republican Party is trying to look a little bit less hypocritical, so they're taking the Trump position, to count fewer ballots instead of more, basically. But I mean, to me, at this stage of America, Republican hypocrisy is kind of like a water is wet kind of story. I mean, hypocrisy is basically their brand. So the fact that they would be so disingenuous about mail-in ballots doesn't surprise me. I mean, again, I think of the big picture. The big picture is the Republican Party is a party that doesn't want to count all the votes, and I think we're seeing that mindset again here. I mean, big picture, I worry a lot more about the fact that these guys, have already curtailed and want to kill drop-in voting boxes. The end of voting by mail, and anything that makes voting more easier or more feasible is something that they are going to kill if they, if they're going to successfully kill if they win the governor's race. Although if Doug Mastriano wins the governor's race, that's just one of our many problems in Pennsylvania if that happens. But yeah, I mean, this is a party that wants to make it hard to vote. I mean, the 2020 election, the reality of the 2020 election was, aside from the fact that Biden won, which was very helpful, but in addition, it was just from a pure democracy standpoint, it was that election was a smashing success. I mean, voting by mail works very well in Pennsylvania, and it helps increase turnout. And we should all want more voter turnout. And I honestly, and I'm not being facetious here. I mean, I want to see more people vote because I want to see more people vote, not because it helps Democrats. Now, generally, it does happen to help Democrats, as it turns out. But to me, that's not the reason. I mean, I would love to see, I don't know, as you know, some nations have mandatory voting. I don't know. I have mixed feelings about that as a rule, but I would love to see us get as close to 100% voting as we can, and let the chips fall where they may, and let's have a real election with everybody voting and see what happens. And that's not the Republican philosophy right now, and that's part of what you're seeing, with this maneuvering about.
Yeah, it's interesting that the party has taken the position. No, all of our voters don't really count, so we're going to go that route.
I mean, you're insulting your own voters. Obviously they're making it harder on some level for a number of Democrats to vote, but they're also making it harder for their own people to vote. It's really, it just shows how they can tie themselves into knots once that becomes their kind of default position that, like, well, not everybody should vote.
That's crazy. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show. We're here with Will Bunch. He's a national opinion columnist over at the Philadelphia Inquirer. You can check out his work over at the Philly Inquirer, inquirer.com, the website. We'll get links out on social media how you can take a look at that. Now, you got a piece out on Mastriano. Homophobia is Mastriano's driving force. That seems like a bit harsh. It seems a bit harsh, even though I've heard the man speak. It's actually fairly accurate.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch, he gave a standard 15-minute victory speech after he won the primary last week. and I, in the interest of journalism, I forced myself to watch the whole thing, and to me, it was laced with a kind of homophobia. For your listeners who are not in Pennsylvania, it may take a little explaining, although I think most people in Pennsylvania understand this, is that, we had this situation where when you had the pandemic, the Pennsylvania Health Commissioner, I have to confess that, like, if you asked me, 10 years ago, who was, Ed Rendell's health commissioner, I would, struggle to remember who that was, but this was, of course, I don't really cover state government intensively, but on a regular basis. But when the pandemic came, the health commissioner suddenly became, or the health secretary, suddenly became the most important position in state government.
Right.
And Tom Wolf, give him credit, he appointed this highly qualified doctor who happens to be a transgender woman, Rachel Levine, to that post, which was a very, I think courageous move on his part. I think he picked Dr. Levine because she was the best person for the job, but also happened to be transgender. So God bless him. But when you all of a sudden when you had the state issuing these important, dictate, orders, whatever, around the COVID-19 pandemic, and they were coming from a transgender woman, you can imagine Trump world freaked out, right? And so Rick, driving around Pennsylvania, there were just like billboards and just all kinds of attacks on, Levine, who, and again, she's not, really the governor is ultimately responsible for the state policy, but Levine became the face of Pennsylvania's policy, and Republicans have played it up to the max. That this is to them, this is a sign of America's decline. That you have a transgender person in this important position, which is ridiculous. And so Mastriano, if he gets elected, in terms of policy, he's going to go full, like these red southern states. He's going to try and put in bathroom laws about, whatever gender you had at birth. He would ban transgender athletes from playing sports. And the bigger picture here, you can say, well, these laws affect not a large number of people. Well, first of all, everybody has human rights, no matter how many people are affected, number one. But number two, also, it's just part of this broader climate of fear that's really targeting not only transgender people, and they're incredibly important, but it's also just a climate of fear for the entire LGBTQ plus community in Pennsylvania, which now you're talking about hundreds of thousands of people and their families who love them, and they have to go to school in this state where the government is basically kind of waging a holy war against them, and it's important. And one of the reasons I wrote this column is I also wanted to go a little bit deeper in the fact that homophobia and just kind of this anti-LGBTQ plus mindset is kind of central to authoritarianism. And I never thought in my life, when I entered journalism 40 years ago, I never thought I would cover a race for a state governorship where the issue was that the potential governor could be like an authoritarian, a dictator, basically.
But no, I went further than that. I've been calling him Benito Mastriano. I think he's a Nazi. And I fear that, we head in you use the word authoritarian, we head in a very fascistic direction where we're bullying and we're beating up on the least, on the weakest, because this is who they are. And there's that kind of, and his speech was not just, dog whistle. He was full out saying, we're not moving to the center. We're going crazy to the extremes. And that kind of mentality makes me think of, of what I learned about World War II and the Nazi era. Yeah. That first they came for you fill in the blank group, but by the time they got for me, there's nobody left. This is that kind of moment.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at, we have one of the largest suburban school districts in Pennsylvania is this Central Bucks School District, which covers a big chunk of Bucks County. County, just north of Philadelphia, Doylestown and areas like that. And, Mastriano, even, and hopefully he won't ever be governor, but whether or not he becomes governor, even now, the school district, they're fighting over everything about, books in the library that they say are sexualized, and whether classrooms can display, rainbow flags, and although they did reverse course after it went public, but they initially tried to dissuade the kids from doing the student version of Rent as their school musical because it has gay themes in it, and it's really, this is like, Weimar Republic, what was that movie, Cabaret, it's kind of like pre-Nazi, we're going after the permissive culture, it's scary out there, and Mastriano would make it 10 times worse. When he won the nomination, which, wasn't really a surprise, and we saw this coming for weeks, but when he did win the nomination, I wrote another column that was ran in the paper Sunday. I wrote a column basically saying this is going to be, not my sole focus because there's too many other things like the shooting in Texas this week, but which I just wrote about that hasn't been published yet. But this Mastriano story is going to be my main focus between now and November, because I feel like I don't want to wake up on November 4th and feel like I hadn't explored and warned people about every possible thing that this guy could do as governor, and then the biggest thing, as is that he could not count our votes, that he could appoint a Secretary of State who would share his philosophy about the big lie that Donald Trump really won in 2020 and that there was massive election fraud. In fact, I'm kind of starting to work on a column. I don't know when it will appear, probably in the next few weeks, but looking at the fact that, I think if Mastriano is elected, it's kind of hard to believe, but I think the first thing he would do as governor is try and decertify Joe Biden's 2020 election victory. That's how crazy these people are. So.
No, and look, the other part of this is, let's not we forget he was at the January 6th insurrection, and he was one of the guys who was organizing bus trips down there. He's one of those guys who, I'm hoping possibly he gets through.
There's a serious question, right, about whether that provision in the 14th Amendment about people who, participated in an uprising, the thing that resulted in that Marjorie Taylor Greene court hearing a couple of weeks ago, this provision that people who participated in a uprising or insurrection against the United States government, which initially was meant to be the Civil War and Confederacy, could that be invoked against Doug Mastriano? I've seen people seriously raise that question, and it is a legitimate question. His involvement. The only thing. We don't know where he ended up. Right? We don't know. If he got on to restricted property, in which case he would have been absolutely a lawbreaker on January 6th. But like you said, we know he had the 3 or 4 buses that he sent down there. We know that he was, him and his friend Rick Saccone and some other people marched right up to the Capitol, and they were there when bad things were going on. And he's got people working on his staff. He's got a guy working on his staff. One of the people who is part of the goon squad that keeps reporters out of covering his rallies is a guy who not only was there January 6th, but was one of the people cheering on thugs who destroyed journalists' camera equipment that day, if you remember. This is who these people are.
And that's how he'll govern. And that's the part that I think people. And look, I think that's part of the appeal. I think that the people who would vote for him want that kind of. Want that kind of leadership. They want that kind of government so they can put those libtards in place, and that's what's scary about the moment that we're in. And we're going to see what happens. But Will, I appreciate the time and the work you do. Fantastic stuff. I hope people will check it out. We'll get links out on social media. But as always, good stuff, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Rick. It was a pleasure. Good talking to you.
As always, our good friend Will Bunch, opinion columnist there at the Philadelphia Inquirer. Make sure you check out his work. We'll get links out on social media. Let's take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1986. That was the day that more than 5 million people participated in Hands Across America. The event was organized to raise money to combat the problems of homelessness and hunger in the United States. People agreed to donate $10 to stand in their place in line for 15 minutes. The line was supposed to link people hand in hand from New York City through 17 states to Long Beach, California. The event gained support of corporate donors, including the Coca-Cola Company and Citibank. Initially, the plan drew the ire of President Ronald Reagan, who claimed, quote, "I don't believe that there is anyone going hungry in America by reason of denial or lack of ability to feed them. It is by people not knowing where or how to get this help." The president refused to acknowledge how factors like the loss of industrial jobs and the decline of labor unions contributed to families having hard times making ends meet. Eventually, President Reagan got on board, forming part of the chain in Washington, D.C. He was joined in line across the country by everyone from Oprah to Chewbacca and Mickey Mouse. The event was projected to raise $50 million, but not everyone turned in their pledged contributions, and staffing costs ate into profits. In the end, the project raised about $20 million. In 2015, the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development reported that there were more than 500,000 people homeless in the United States. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
It's a scary prospect, the idea that you're going to have someone like Mastriano as governor of a state like Pennsylvania. And look at what's going on in Michigan with the fraud that's going on there with the signatures. You've got the 5 candidates for governor there who, amazingly, they had tens of thousands of votes. Tens of thousands of signatures. What are they, 68,000 fraudulent signatures? But these are the people who are saying, it's those Democrats who are doing all this fraudulent stuff. Yeah, and this isn't the first time in Michigan they've gotten caught. It was like a decade ago that, what was his name? McCotter? Thaddeus McCotter, his office got caught. They had a number, I think 4 or 5 staffers who got charged with a slew of felonies and misdemeanors for doing just that. Didn't want to actually go out and do the hard work of gathering signatures. They just went and wrote people's names down. And you'll remember Acorn? How the right just jumped on it. Acorn's doing this. The fraud was actually committed against Acorn because they turned it in. They said, look, we've got these ballots. We think these registrations, we think they're fraudulent. You should check them out. And the right just lost their mind over it and goes, see, look, they're cheating. And again, as I always say, it's amazing how the people who keep pointing stuff out and go, it's them over there, seem to be the ones that are doing it. And I do find it interesting that now with these 5 gubernatorial candidates in Michigan being knocked out because they couldn't get enough signatures, the Trump guy, the Trump people are now at the top of the ticket. So you could have someone crazy in Michigan too. Scary, scary times. But I wonder if anyone's going to go to jail over this. It would be interesting to see the former Detroit police chief behind bars for the 11,100 fraudulent signatures that he turned in. Because evidently you need 15,000 valid ones, and he turned in 11,100 fraudulent ones. I guess he just didn't feel like going knocking on doors those days. It's just, wow. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com. If you miss any of the show, make sure you grab the podcast. Always there, always available. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk about, hey, who killed overtime? I want to know. Back after this.
Australians have chosen a government that will act on climate change.
Big win for climate and living things in Australia's national elections. Global warming made record South Asia heatwave more likely and much worse. Plus, grid regulator warns most of the U.S. is at risk of blackouts this summer.
Oh, fantastic. All of those stories and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
KCAA Loma Linda, 10